Nigeria is the largest economy in West Africa. That's not news, but the news is that how come the trade and commerce within the sub-region is not as easily as fast-track as everyone will expect, with the size of Nigeria on one hand and the other two big economies, Ghana and Ivory Coast. Let's bring in the head of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Director General, Muda Yusuf, is live to us here in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
And let's also add that LCCI is holding a conference tomorrow to discuss this particular topic about ECOWAS economic integration. Now, let's start with this. Nigeria is the big brother in West Africa, but the question is, it looks like Nigeria drags the region in terms of trade. Talk to us about this.
Well, first of all, you know, ECOWAS is the oldest economic bloc on the African continent. It was founded in 1975. That was some 41 years ago. And it hasn't made much progress in terms of economic integration. Over the years, there has been much bigger focus on the issue of peacekeeping. You remember the story of ECOMOG?
Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast,
Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, you know, and so on and so forth. And that has consumed quite a lot of attention and a lot of resources of both the Nigerian government and many other governments in the sub-region. But of course, because Nigeria is a big brother, we spent an estimated $8 billion, you know,
in peacekeeping missions at various times
in the sub-region. But it is now time to begin to refocus the main objective of ECOWAS.
Isn't it interesting
yes.
that the first alphabet in ECOWAS, which was letter E, stands for economic?
Yeah. And that underscores what the main objective of ECOWAS should be. But that has been secondary, and not sufficient attention has been brought to bear on that. And that is why we feel that as private sector operators, we need to bring this on the front burner. We need to set the agenda for both the ECOWAS head of states and the ECOWAS Commission, that there's a need to focus more on the issue of economic integration.
So you think enough had been done in terms of economic integration, ensuring stability of governments within the region?
Well, these are some of the bottlenecks or constraints to economic integration.
Do you think, therefore, that political consideration, geopolitical positioning, and discussions had overtaken economy and social transformation of the region?
Exactly. That is what has happened. Because if you look at most of the sub-regions, I mean the countries in the sub-region, we have challenges, for instance, of non-tariff barriers. You know, checkpoints, and all these challenges that people face when they want to trade across the sub-region. This is not being sufficiently addressed. There are issues about the payment system, although that is improving, because you have quite a number of Nigerian banks now across the sub-region, and they are doing very well. Issues of transportation, we have a number of Nigerian airlines also flying the entire sub-region. That is helping the economic integration. But the political aspect of it in terms of policy, particularly trade policy, we need to also streamline that and make sure that it is more integration friendly. Because we have pockets of policies across the sub-region that are also impeding the objective of economic integration.
But what about the protocol, the ECOWAS Trade Protocol?
Well, the ECOWAS Trade Protocol is part of the major steps towards integration. You know, you have 3 or 4 key levels. You have what you call the free trade area, which is to allow for trading among the members of ECOWAS. You have what you call the customs union, which is supposed to create a framework where you have common external tariff.
Yes.
You have what you call the common market, which will facilitate the flow of capital and persons within the sub-region. And you have what you call the monetary union, which is the peak of the economic integration, where you have common currency. But right now, we are struggling even with the free trade area, although we have theoretically moved to the customs union because of the common external tariff. But there are still a lot of issues, compliance issues. Because if each of the government comes up, for instance, with an import restriction, which is supposed to at least, you know, exempt the ECOWAS countries and things like that, these things don't happen. And all these things impede the realization of the economy.
We're focusing on Nigeria here,
yes.
The big brother, and we have 41 items that were slammed across the region. How did the region take that? What happened? What has happened since then?
Well, member states in the sub-region are not happy with it. there have been a lot of agitation within the sub-region. Some of them have even threatened to retaliate.
Did we discuss it with them? Does it look like
no, there was no discussion.
So we did not discuss with ECOWAS before the central bank went ahead?
No. You see, some of these things is looking more like the Brexit kind of thing. We are looking more now at, there's more of a nationalistic perspective to this. And I must say this, that even many of the players in the manufacturing sector are not comfortable with economic integration because of the high cost of doing business in Nigeria. They feel that the moment you allow for full integration, the system will penalize them because they are not competitive in terms of production.
In other words, the lack of competitiveness in Nigeria will shift the costs to their own region, to their own country.
Exactly.
To Ghana, to Ivory Coast.
Exactly. Okay. And that will create more opportunities for those in other countries. So I think there's a challenge here, even within the country, to ensure that we ramp up this issue of competitiveness. Because the way to get value from an economic integration framework is for you to be competitive. If you are not competitive and you go into integration, you'll be penalized. You have serious competitiveness issues. So these are issues that also are agitating the minds of those who are operators in the private sector.
In terms of regional infrastructure, let's move into that, then we'll move it backwards. In terms of infrastructure, you talk about the airlines. Let's talk about the free movement of people. Yes, with a green passport, which is a Nigerian passport, you can board a plane and land in any country within within the West Coast. But again, if you're going to go by road, that's a different issue. There's no single rail line.
Yeah.
So the only way, I'm not done about sea, but I haven't tried that.
But, it's a big problem.
So, do you think even the free movement of people within the region hasn't really helped because key economies and leader of this region, which is Nigeria, hasn't really fixed its own infrastructure?
That is a very big issue. For instance, if you listen to the experience of economic players that move by road, that move their trucks and all of that, they face a lot of hazards, a lot of challenges at the various borders in the sub-region. It happens in Nigeria. I mean, between Seme and maybe Badagry here, there are so many checkpoints. And it also happens in Benin. It happens in Togo and the rest of the African countries. So there is no sufficient political commitment yet to dismantle this very critical non-tariff barrier.
ECOWAS heads of state meet regularly. The parliaments, the parliamentarians within the region meet regularly. Yeah. They come 90% of the time to Abuja, footing the bill, as it were. Okay, so how come, when last did we have an economic discussion?
Well, unfortunately, the discussion within ECOWAS has not been sufficiently focused on the issue of the economy, particularly the issue of dismantling all these barriers.
At the heads of state level, is it?
Yes, of course, at the head of state level and also at the ministerial level. Because there is no, ECOWAS also have very limited powers. You have protocols, but you don't have the capacity to enforce the protocols. So there are issues of various infractions on the protocols.
Aren't the protocols signed by the relevant countries?
They are signed by all the countries. They are signed by head of
But states. They are not obeyed.
Most times they are not obeyed. And there is no framework within the ECOWAS statutes and to impose any sanctions. So the enforcement capacity of ECOWAS is also very restricted. So that's a major issue.
Let's now look at the private sector. Yes. What do you think chambers of commerce can do? You also have chambers of commerce, regional one. What are you folks doing? Are you doing anything to help the heads of state?
Well, part of the things we are thinking of doing, at least with the conference that is coming up tomorrow, is to also look at how we can, further strengthen the capacity of the private sector to prevail on the political authorities, to look at some of these critical issues about economic integration. I mean, before now, we had what you call the Federation of West African Chambers of Commerce. They played a critical role in the formation of EcoBank, for instance. They also played a critical role even in the formation of ECOWAS. But since then, there has been a kind of reduction in the momentum of activities of the West African, the regional chambers of commerce. So we are looking at revamping that.
For instance, you have thousands of members in Lagos. You're the biggest chamber, perhaps in the whole of West Africa, by size of Lagos. So, do you think if you say tomorrow you want 100 companies, 200 companies in Nigeria to do a road show within West Africa, bus stops, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, Liberia, do you think it will work? What are the concerns of LCCI members regarding going out there and say, look, we want to expand our footprints across the region?
Well, it is something that will work. But again, you need the political support to make these things happen. As a private sector person, of course, you will be well disposed to take part in this roadshow and all that.
You need a
but you must have
you just organize the people, the businesses. Are they willing to go or not? What political support do you need? You want the president to sign off on it?
No. I mean, all these barriers. We talk about infrastructure, for instance. To move a product from Nigeria to, say, Ghana or to Senegal, it's a hell of a problem. You don't have a sea link, for instance. If you throw your products into a ship, you possibly have to go to Asia or go to Europe before coming back to somewhere in any of the West African countries.
Why so?
So, of course, because there is no direct sea link. So they are just a new
There are no freighters.
No.
That does the West Africa.
We don't have
sea
it.
route.
We don't have it. We are just trying to develop what you call sea link. That's a proposal by Nexim and some private sector operators to create a vehicle, I mean a ship that will just fly the West African sub-region. So most of these products still go by road. And going by road is a horrendous task because of these various bottlenecks. So you need the political authorities to be able to dismantle that. You need the political authorities to provide the infrastructure. I mean, you just mentioned the issue of rail. It's not the private sector that will fix the rail. It's the political authorities across the sub-region. If you have that, it will be easier for the private sector to now leverage that to do business. Then I talked about the issue of competitiveness within our own economy. The cost of doing business is still very high. Energy cost in particular is putting a lot of businesses at a disadvantage. So if you talk to an average manufacturer about economic integration, they are not enthusiastic about it. Because they feel that the moment you expose them to this integration environment, they will lose that because of their cost of production. So we need to deal with what we call the supply side issues, competitiveness issues within our own economy so that we can get maximum value from the economic integration process.
Muda Yusuf, we thank you very much for coming on the program. Very interesting thing. We'll keep an eye on that event tomorrow. Okay. We want to see what the discussions are from the private sector. Muda Yusuf, Director General and Head of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. When we come back, we'll talk about Dogara's indignation and the stock market. We'll be back with that.